morning's call is titled Selling Dessert. And one of the things that happens when you are traveling consultant is you eat a lot in restaurants. And I want to talk today about some of the presentations I most commonly see about selling desserts and get some input as we go down this path and see how that relates to automotive. Because initially you might say, selling desserts, what's that got to do with my life in a car dealership? And I hope you'll see the connection here towards the end of the call. But the most common way that I see a waitress attempt to sell me a dessert and when I'm in a restaurant is they come up with this slogan right here. You didn't save any room for a dessert, did you? And that's the most common way I see them attempt to sell me one. Of course, the answer is no. I didn't save any room for dessert. But when you're looking at that, the approach that I had one waitress give me when I was at Montgomery Inn, which is one of the finest, it is the finest barbecue rib joint in the world as far as I'm concerned. But I want you to listen to the description that this waitress gave me about one particular dessert. And this was years ago, yet I remember it extremely well. And still desire to go back to this restaurant. I will travel out of my way to go back to this restaurant. But let's listen to how she presented the dessert. Hey, you know what? I just wanted to tell you about our lava caramel volcano dessert. What we do with that is we take a sponge cake and we harvest out the middle of that sponge cake and we fill it with melted caramel. Then on the top, we put the top of the cake back on the top of that caramel, and we sprinkle powdered sugar over that and include a vanilla bean scoop of ice cream. We get so many comments on this dessert. We just think it's incredible. Now, with that kind of presentation, I'll guarantee you one thing. I ordered that dessert. I had to have it. And it was as lovely as it sounded. Now that dessert, guarantee you, isn't an economy thing. It was probably an $8 dessert, and of course my wife had to have one too. But when we got done with that, we were totally going to order it the next time we went into that facility. Is it good for you? Is it healthy? No, there's no question. It's probably got more calories in it than I needed. But the presentation of it is what I want you to consider. And then the probably best way that I've seen people sell desserts in restaurants is when they bring up the tray that's full of the desserts they're offering. They bring up that dessert tray and say, do you see anything here that you would like to have for dessert? Now I'm going to give you an example of how powerful this is. And one time I was at a birthday celebration with family, probably 8 of us, sitting down to dinner. And the waitress brought over the tray only after I asked her to. So initially her presentation to the table to sell us dessert was, you didn't save room, did you? Everyone at that table, all 8 people, said no, they did not save any room for dessert. So I said, would you bring over the tray, the dessert tray, and show me what's available? Now I went out on that tray and, oh my goodness, were they delicious desserts. said, you know what, I'm full right now, but would you give me one of those to go? Now, I would tell you this little experiment cost me 8 desserts to go, because everyone that said no saw something on that tray they thought was wonderful. And they too were full at that time, but everyone got one to go. Now, I'd say 8 times 8, maybe that's $70 bill plus the gratuity. Might have cost me just shy of $100 to experiment with that. But we went from 8 no sale to 100% sold. Now let's look at the difference. The first one, where you ask a question, let's see how this relates to automotive. You don't want a transmission flush, do you? Well, I can guarantee if that's your approach, you're not going to sell any. Or this one, this is another one. Hey, you're at 60,000, you're due for a transmission flush. Well, that doesn't seem likely, does it? Now let's look at how a different approach might be. Sir, with your vehicle mileage, we recommend, we've got a $5,000 machine in the back there that we hook up to your transmission coolant line, and we inject a chemical through there that loosens up the dirt and debris. Then we remove all of the old fluid in that chemical, and we add another chemical in there to soften the seals, keep the plate super lubricated, and in addition to that, all brand new transmission fluid. The cost of the equipment, the technician, all of the chemicals, and the new transmission fluid is $154.95. Would you like me to do that for you today while we have your vehicle? Now that sales pitch, if you timed it, probably took all of about 30 seconds. Now obviously some of these transmissions you can see fluid, some of them you can't see fluid, but if you showed somebody that the fluid was filthy and visually involved them in it, the likelihood of you closing that transaction goes up triple. So which sales process, if you know what's going to happen with the desserts, don't think for a moment that that's not true with automotive. Simple things like balance and rotate tires instead of rotate tires. Occasionally when we rotate tires, we get a sense that the tire will vibrate changing the position. So for every 20,000 miles, we recommend a rotating balance to compensate for that tire wear, and then we're assured that when we rotate the position, you're not going to get a little vibration going down the highway. 30 seconds. Yet it goes from a rotate to a rotating balance, and it's the best way to care for the customer's vehicle. One of the things that I think is interesting about our business, the car dealership world, is we spend little or no time on what labor operations we're presenting. Just like that caramel dessert, the caramel volcano, where you were thinking, man, that does sound good. Our customer deserves the same type of professional presentation for our labor operations. Are you role-playing it with your team? Are you looking at feature benefit presentations, the different services you're offering? If not, let today's call be a challenge to you to get you out of that. You didn't save room for dessert, did you? Because the frequency of those labor operations won't be near as effective. And don't forget, the ultimate tool will always be to involve the customer visually. Just like that, bringing the dessert tray. Are you bringing the dessert tray for your customers on their labor ops? When seeing is believing, seeing is buying. It takes a little additional time. Yeah, very little. Takes a little additional effort. Yeah. But it's the right way to do business. All right, let's open it up for questions or comments. If you, as always, want to make a comment, push the number 1. It will raise your hand. Mike, our moderator, will see that. And actually at this time, Mike, let's go ahead and open the lines up and just allow other people to participate if they desire. Questions or comments?
Well, actually, Rob, it reminds me I was just in the dealership over the weekend. I had car problems over the weekend, and it reminds me of I can't remember the gentleman's name. He was a service advisor that actually brought me a set of my brake pads that were chewed up a little bit. And I would tell you, if he didn't bring me those chewed up brake pads and show me that they were bad, I wouldn't have bought brake pads that day. But because he brought them over and showed me what they look like, well, he actually brought me to the vehicle, but he showed me the wear on those, that I actually purchased brake pads over the weekend.
Perfect example. Perfect example. So involving you visually closed the deal. The other part of that, could you question the integrity of the shop? Never. Not when they show you. Could your significant other question the logic of you buying it? No, you saw it. You believe it. It's real. You responded to the evidence presented to you. Great example. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, if no one else wants to have any comments or share anything, that will conclude today's call. Thanks for attending, and I, as always, appreciate your participation. Have a great day, everybody.